Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is what it's like moving to the USA featuring Lost in the Pond. This is Diana's channel, I believe, and she did a collab with Lawrence. I think there's another part on his channel, something similar. I'm not sure if it's like a second part to this or not. James isn't here. He's probably not going to be in a few of these videos. He's really busy with the itinerary and planning and making sure everything's printed out and watching Archie because Archie doesn't really sleep anymore. So these videos will just be me on my own. So what it's like moving to the USA, featuring Lost in the Pond, let's get into it.
Lost in the Pond on the channel. Lawrence, Lost in the Pond, brilliant in Chicago. Get Lawrence on or I'm going to kick you in the face. Okay, I think I should maybe get Lawrence from Lost in the Pond on my channel. Wow! I'm so good at things and magic. Hi Lawrence.
Who's that?
You're in my hotel.
It's Diane.
His wife is here too, it's okay.
You
It's okay.
So today I have Lawrence from Lost in the Pond with me. You look lost in this setup.
It's my general disposition, Diane.
How did you get here? Through the magic of cinema.
Taxi. We took a taxi.
I feel like
Hi.
they're like two separate personalities. Like just from that, she's like I use the word crazy, but like lightly. Like she's like bubbly, like happy. Not that Lawrence isn't, but a bit more like playful. Whereas he's like very like his sarcasm is kind of where he hits. The interesting balance.
I'm Lawrence from Lost in the Pond. You just said that, but
Yeah.
I'm saying it again.
Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond.
Because that's who I am. It's what I do. Check me out on YouTube or the other social media places.
And he does culture stuff and things too.
Yeah.
In a light-hearted way.
Very light-hearted way. Awkward.
Well, today I'm going to talk to Lawrence about what it's like being a person living in the United States of the America versus being a person just visiting the United States of the America.
They're both very different things.
They are different things because I feel like I get all the loveliness of like being a tourist and I get to see all the nice things and maybe I get people on their best behaviour.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
It's possible, especially with your accent, and I've experienced that myself in the past visiting, and I think that's true. I think some of the day-to-day things that I have to experience living here, you don't have to put up with, so it's great.
Yeah, totally. Something, and we're just going to get this one out of the way. Tipping. Okay. How many times have you talked about tipping? Tipping!
Tipping a lot because it's such a big cultural...
Yeah, I feel like that comes up on every single one of these like videos we do comparing like even America to the rest of the world. I feel like that's always the main one that comes up.
difference, I think, between both America and my country and probably your country, I suspect.
Exactly. So when I come here, I really do have to think about it though. Like when I'm tipping, like am I tipping this much? Am I tipping that much? Do I tip this person? Have they gone? But I guess living here, you must be on autopilot by now.
Yes, you do get into that kind of autopilot way with it. However, there are certain circumstances where I still don't know if I'm supposed to tip. Like if you go into, not a Subway, because I don't think it's expected there, but in a fancy kind of like place where they make things for you at a counter and then you yourself take it to a desk, I'm still unsure if you tip for that. Some people say you don't, some people say you do. So I don't know, but the tipping thing is still an unusual thing for me because it's not required.
Right, I had a funny one actually. I got a spray tan. Oh, so I know.
Fancy.
I'm off-white. Wow.
Right, because if you're not Oompa Loompa orange, what are you even doing with your life?
But I asked for medium and I got fair.
If fake tan dysmorphia is affecting you or a loved one, please contact Diane's Patreon or channel membership. Also, if you're enjoying this video, you'll probably enjoy the behind the scenes and the additional video which will be coming out in this channel soon, so subscribe or miss out.
So I'm supposed to go back and get resprayed. Now I already tipped for it and they offered my money back, but they said they'd respray me. So I'm like, do I tip again?
That's a good question, and without much experience of tanning salons, I can't really give you an in-depth answer to that. But I can say that I think that, just generally speaking, when you revisit or go back to an establishment that maybe you've been to before, it's still expected that you would perhaps tip.
If it's a different person, I'm thinking...
See, I don't think I would because, like, you see, she's paid for the service, she's tipped on top, but they've not done what she wanted, so they're redoing to correct their mistake. So I don't think she should have to tip again.
thinking I'll tip them, but if it's the girl who did me the first time,
You've got to send a message.
right? Wow.
This day and age. I'm kidding. I'm actually.
She's been in Chicago too long.
I am a profoundly good tipper.
Are you?
Yeah, definitely. 20% every time. Not every time. There was this one incident at IHOP where we got shortchanged in both senses of the word.
Wow.
And that person received a tip of about 1%.
Oh my God. Really?
No,
I can't imagine you would do that.
I wouldn't do that. But I was
Imagine.
tempted. It was in my head to do it.
And the British anger is so quiet and soothing.
It is, but also this sort of like propensity to be polite was also weighing against it. So I thought, well, I should at least do something, and I did.
Right. I like how expressive Americans are. Like when an American is angry, you know they're angry.
Oh yeah.
And I found myself like, say something happens even on camera, and I'm like, was I very furious there, and it was very rude, and then I look back at it, you know, and same with British people.
Oh yeah.
You're like, no, you're angry and all.
Oh,
You
yeah,
actually seem quite pleasant.
Are you all right, mate? Yeah, I'm fine. And you feel it deep within your, being that you've been rude. And it's like when we met you today, Tara suggested, oh, why don't you come meet us at where we're going to be? And I was like, oh, I've already made the plans. We don't want to ruin the plans now, And so that happened, and I still feel bad to this day.
No, you shouldn't. I'm totally fine with it.
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
If they're just like straight out the gate, very broad general question. Is there any huge differences you can think about being a person who visits here versus being a person who lives here that would immediately
That's a
jump
good
out?
one.
I think some of it's to do with the day-to-day stuff. I mean, for instance, you're mandated to have and purchase healthcare here or get it as part of your job. The healthcare system, of course, wildly different to what I would expect back home. We had an incident years ago where we got a massive bill. We're talking 6 figures here. I can't do maths. 6 figures. I know.
Wow.
I know. And so, but eventually it was all sorted and everything's fine. But it is a big shock. And then ambulance rides can be anywhere up to $6,000. That's an expensive.
That must be weird, I think, from living in Britain and then moving, because obviously we don't pay for anything like that. I mean, I suppose you'd pay any taxes in a kind of way, but you don't get a bill in the post. So that must be different for him.
A taxi to the hospital. So things like that really stick out to me. It's those things that you need in your life, but you wouldn't necessarily have if you're a traveller here.
Right.
And healthcare is a big one. But if we're not going to stick to just the negative, although they do generate clicks, I would say that a lot of the food that I've experienced here has been mind-blowing to the extent that I didn't even know that such a diversity of foods was in the offing when I moved here.
Food, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Now, I do get the worst of the food because I do the taste tests, and I mean, pretty much when I come here, it's just like junk food. But when you live here, is it a different experience?
I'm not sure it is so much different. We still have fast food to this day, because there's the convenience of it that you perhaps don't even have in the UK, where you can just drive up to the building and say, I'd like a Big Mac. Not for free. You have to pay still.
Oh my gosh. Everything's so expensive here.
In Chicago, it's not too bad for a major city, but it's when you get out west, as you've seen, where things are crazy in terms of expense. But in terms of all of that, it doesn't change much. But I've noticed that depending on where you are geographically in the United States, your options might be different. Like, for example, out in Boston, you've got various types of seafood that you can get here, but it's not the real deal that you would get in Boston. And same with all of those other local dishes that I've talked about on my channel.
I guess that's the same for like the UK. Like obviously we have like American copies of things. Obviously it's meant to be kind of portrayed as the same as the American chains, but it's obviously not the real. It's not the real thing.
And that's the great thing about the fact that America's so large. It has just such a broad collection of food items that I can't get, for the most part, in Britain.
Right. Is there anything when you go back to Britain, is there anything you're like, oh, I really wish we had that here?
This is really sad to say, but an Arby's roast beef sandwich.
I have one!
The hell is that?
If she didn't like it.
It looks like a tongue. What the frick? I was expecting a patty.
How did you feel about
Yeah,
it?
also big blobs of meat.
If you can call it meat, I don't know. But there's something just so unbelievably nice about them that reminds me of my first day living here, because we drove to an Arby's after leaving Indianapolis Airport, and I thought I'd reached the promised land.
I'm not sure if Arby's is on our list, actually. I'll have to have a check, see if it is.
So the next thing I want to ask you about is integration. I mean, obviously you have your beautiful accent, and I'm sure people ask you about that all the time.
Yes.
But how easy or difficult has it been for you to integrate into American culture?
It's a good question, because I think you're right. The accent does to some degree help, especially when I lived in a kind of smaller town in Indiana where they just don't meet many English people. My accent stood out to them. They would ask me all manner of questions about my family, the royal family, as you may have heard of. And I didn't usually have...
You know you were royalty.
yeah, it's one of those things that the papers generally overlook, just because I don't dress very well. But...
To the contrary.
You're right. Well, I don't dress like them. That actually helped. The fact that they cottoned onto my accent. It made it easier to make friends with people, to make connections, to get jobs.
I agree.
Really?
I got jobs on the back of my accent. Yeah,
Oh, very cool.
It was cool, but on the first day, they did single me out for attention among the group of new hires, and had me speak my accent to the whole group. That's not a lie.
Say baked beans.
Yes, please do. It was that they wanted to put me up in against the wall and just speak.
Sounds like the...
I guess we'd love Americans because we want them. We like have words in our head that we want them to say. So I feel like that's the same, just the opposite way around.
thing you should talk to somebody about, maybe.
It's a bit late now. I left that job about 12 years ago.
Right, you're okay now.
I'm
severely traumatized.
I'm still in therapy for it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Here's an obvious but necessary question.
Yes.
Do you have any advice for a prospective person thinking about moving to the USA?
Keep your accent.
Keep your
It'll help
accent.
in those early days, but that's very superficial. And this doesn't just apply to moving to America. I think that when you move to any new country, it's very much worth your time to embrace that new country. Yes. I think a lot of people come here and they decry the things they can't get anymore, like their favourite chocolates from back home, or just their favourite TV shows, or whatever it might be. And I do that too, but it's not to the detriment of my quality of life here. I still try to enjoy living here. If I didn't, I wouldn't be talking about it in such positive terms, I suppose, on my channel. I think that's it. I think it's embrace it. Every country in the world comes with both its negative and positive elements, and you have to just go along with it, I think.
Right, I do agree with you. Like, you really do have to integrate yourself into the culture, which brings me to the next question. Cultural integration versus cultural preservation.
These are huge words.
They are big words.
These are really big words.
Right.
I like reading books.
I do too. And what does that mean that you just asked me?
Do you find it difficult to maintain your British culture without becoming too American, while also being able to get along in daily life?
I think I've cheated the system here a little bit because I've become a YouTuber who talks about these things. I feel it almost incumbent upon myself to maintain a certain Englishness. I think it's accidental. It's not something that I'm doing on purpose necessarily, but I know that my audience is tuning in partly because I am British. So it just continues to happen, and I preserve it that way. And also I talk about my Britishness on my channel, so there's a certain connection to it. But in some instances, I have just let go of some of the things I grew up with in Britain, simply because you don't access them here.
Like what?
Well, television is a big one, actually, although I have various means to rectify that. The walkability of Britain is something I miss, or at least I suppose the way things, for instance, the way the streets are laid out. Like, I love that they're all winding over there. But I also forgot that they were winding over there because I've just gotten used to blocks and rectangles and things like that. And I've accepted those.
I think it's all about what you're used to. I think it's not necessarily good or bad, the differences. I think it's just you get used to one way, and then when you go to another place and it's done differently, it's takes you a bit of time to understand that new way.
So what they are, I actually really value block and grid layout.
Directions are so easy to follow here.
Yeah.
And also, we are unicorns because neither of us drive.
Wait, we're unicorn?
Unicorn.
I didn't know this.
Your special smells like.
Well, I knew that, but this is a revelation. Where's the thing sticking out my head?
Oh, it's invisible. Magic.
I like that.
Something that I find interesting when I'm on my way to make a trip over here is having to concern myself more so with safety and security, which is obviously when you live somewhere you don't really think about. How have you found that living here versus traveling here?
It's an interesting one, that, because I think that the news might suggest that America could be an unsafe place to live, given all of the sort of wacky stories that come out. I think that depends on where you are. You know, even in Chicago, there are perfectly walkable and safe places all throughout Chicago, in fact, but it gets this reputation as a war zone. These are things I've just never seen with my own experience. So it's about knowing where to walk, where to
hang on.
be, and all of that. I
think the media does portray places as worse than what they are. I think when you're actually there, like, I feel like there were so many stories about New York being unsafe and all, but when you're actually there, it's weird because you don't see any of the stuff that they talk about in the news. So it's like, I think it's different in person.
I generally think I felt more unsafe in certain parts of Britain, actually.
Wow.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, but then again, I say that as a bloke who's 6 feet tall. So I don't have all the answers to that question. Certainly that's been my experience, but I don't know, how have you found it this week?
It's very interesting because I suppose in a way when you're living somewhere, it's the devil you know.
Yes.
So you sort of know what like scams to be aware of.
Oh yeah.
Or like what streets are dodgy and what what you're kind of grand to walk around with your phone out.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're somewhere totally new and you're visiting, you're just like, oh, I gotta be careful everywhere because I don't know if this is a safe place or not.
That was me in San Francisco, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, don't say that, Lawrence, because that's what we're heading to first.
Specifically when I went there 6 years ago, I initially was there on my own at night, and by all accounts, where I was not unsafe, but I just didn't know, so I just assumed, and I was looking over my shoulder, all the time, and I'm like, what's he doing? Oh, he's just selling baguettes. It's fine.
Selling baguettes.
But you don't know that. You're right. But certainly when you live here on the day-to-day, you hear all the stories. Oh, don't go down that street, or don't, walk into that person's yard. I mean, that's just a good rule in general.
Generally speaking.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Have there been any times that you found your Britishness being lost in translation amongst the Americans?
Yes, actually, plenty of times. And often it doesn't manifest through words and phrases. Sometimes it does. Often it's tone. I think sometimes people here don't recognize my brand of sarcasm. And that, by the way, is not to say that Americans themselves don't get sarcasm or don't have it. They do. It's just very different. I think when Americans are sarcastic, they let you know it's sarcastic through their tone of voice, right? And I think British people are just so sort of dry about it that you can't really tell that they're being sarcastic.
You can't tell if they are.
Totally. I think that's very true. And something I maybe have cut out of my personality on YouTube a little bit is the sarcasm, because more often than not, people don't get it.
I've ramped it up.
Oh, really?
I just feel like it's because it's more fun.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's funny
if they don't get it. You can write in the comments.
I did a video recently and I was reacting to something from the 60s or 70s, a music video, and I went, wow, look, no phones anywhere.
Not a phone in sight.
And everyone's like, Diane, phones weren't invented back then, mobile phones. And I was like, I know, I was just joking.
Yeah.
But it's just like, as you say, the tone is just different.
Yeah, it is. And it's even harder when you're writing it down, I suppose, in a comment, because you can't see the sarcasm.
Yeah. I heard there's a new thing, you hashtag S when you mean sarcasm.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Oh no, hashtag slash.
/S.
Slash.
I have to remember that.
The slash goes.
Maybe I'll say that out loud when I'm being sarcastic as well.
Slash S.
It'd be really awkward. Yeah. /S.
My last question for you, Lawrence, Lost in the Pond, a bloke at... Go check his channel, it's wonderful. That sounded like slash sarcasm, but it wasn't.
No, please. You can be as sarcastic about that as you want.
It's great. No, it is. I am actually being sincere. Anyway, if you could come up with an invention for a British person who has moved over or is thinking of moving over to the America, what would that be? It can be technological, it can be otherwise.
High-speed rail would be good, just because, we don't really have that in America, and we technically have it in Britain, and I miss it. But I realise that that is a pipe dream, sometimes literally with trains.
Yeah.
I think, though, for my own personal life, I don't know, maybe it would be something to where I can just translate myself, especially when I'm being ultra sarcastic. But also the words that I use, so that when I encounter an American and I use a word that is just not used here, it translates to them in their brain like they're in an episode of Doctor Who.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Crack. I always have that. That's a huge one. Yeah.
Crack. Oh,
crack.
the Irish
The
word.
Irish word for crack. It's fun.
For a minute there, I thought you were offering me something untoward.
You're so Americanized. Crack is, like, obviously in America, not a good thing, but in Ireland, a very good thing.
It's spelled differently, correct?
C-R-A-I-C.
Right.
In Ireland.
Okay. Can you explain to me what that is again? I saw it in one of your videos.
It's just fun.
Just means having fun.
Having a bit of crack, a bit
That's
of
right.
fun.
I've heard English people use that term as well.
Oh, you've adopted it.
We've adopted it. We've
Irelandized.
stolen your stuff.
It's okay. It's
You're
not
used
the
to that
first
by
time.
now. Yes, I was going to say. Yeah.
Is there any app you could think of that would be, like, good for moving to the America?
Yes, actually, I think it would be a great idea if there was an app that pointed people to the correct visas that they need when applying for, say, citizenship or a residence or whatever it might be. That way, they don't have to go through all of the legwork to type it in on USCIS's website. I'm not disgruntled.
Gotcha. Sounds like a personal experience you've
A
had.
little that my wife reminded me of off camera.
Hello.
Hello.
Everyone.
I've had a production value on this video, the lighting setup and the couch and everything. We've had a wonderful producer on this video.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Mwah, mwah.
Oh, it's been really lovely. And thank you so much for meeting up with me today.
That was a good video. Their links are in the description below. It was like a little Q&A with Lawrence to find out what his views are since, I guess, like, since moving from the UK, but he kind of talks about them in his videos, but it was nice to see somebody else question him to find out his views. Let us know if you want us to check out their other videos that they've done. I think they've done a few more together across both of their channels. And let us know if you want James to check out this video in the comments below, and have a fantastic day. We'll see you in the next one.